Hare Krishna. I think I know everybody here, don't I? I think
A
so.
lot of familiar faces, but lots of new faces that we look forward to getting to know.
How many of you here tonight and you're already married and you've already got babies? All right. Already married with babies. With babies. Yes.
Come on, baby.
How many are already married? Okay. This talk tonight may be a bit late for you. Who's been married for more than 5 years? Oh dear. Who thinks they still need a lot to learn? How many of you are currently looking? Don't look, boys. And how many are considering the prospect at some point in the future? And how many are you here tonight because you want to take sannyas and you're just coming to see how many people you have to knock back online? Very good. So we are very happy to be here tonight. I mean, the only inconvenience is this is the in 40 years of marriage, this is the closest I've sat to my wife in public. And this is what they gave us.
The talk was supposed to be your talk on your book, but I edged my way in saying you can't talk about success in marriage without having a wife along.
And I'm very thankful to you for 40 wonderful years. Now, that could be because we're successful grihastas, or we're just really, really boring people. We never took any risks. But
we definitely made a lot of mistakes along the way. We've learned a lot of lessons for sure.
we can tell you about those.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be able to share some of those with you.
We gave a couple of marriage talks over 3 days. I think one was in Croatia, one was in Slovenia, and then I put them together, put everything that was in the course in the form of a Q&A book. So that's the book we're sort of launching at the moment. Not everything is in there, of course. It's a small book which I wanted to be popular for people who were considering marriage and for people who were looking for maybe some Krishna conscious / just really common sense tips to staying married, because that's the idea. The book is actually subtitled Marriage and Relationships, not Relationships and Marriage. So the marriage comes first in our culture, and then you develop the relationship afterwards. I just thought I'd make that point in the beginning of the book and the beginning of the talk. So we do preparing for marriage. What is marriage? Preparing for it, choosing a partner, first few years of marriage, first year of marriage, first 3 years of marriage, sustaining a relationship, protecting a relationship, and defending a relationship. And all these things are at different stages of your relationship with your partner, and they're all really important. And at no time can you take your eye off the ball. It's really like a match of two halves. You know, the wedding is only the first, the referee's whistle, and then you've got 90 minutes of competition. But I suppose the main thing which we should understand at the very beginning is that we come into this world as babies and completely selfish, just completely selfish, completely self-absorbed. We're meant to, at the end of this life, acquire some self-realization, which means that you become completely selfless. Halfway along, you get married. So marriage is a struggle between the last years of your selfishness and the beginning of your proper selflessness. So marriage is a very good tool for helping you to become the selfless person that you know you can be and you know that you should be. In fact, if the type of love that you experience between you and your partner is to grow and blossom and become the sort of thing that helps you in your self-realization, then it has to turn from a selfish me love, which is all right, it has its place, has its time, but it's got to develop into the selfless love at the end. So let us begin.
I'm just really pleased that the Padma have launched this grihasa, whatever it's called, grihasa sangha. Absolutely. So important. You know, Srila Prabhupada talked about the 4 different ashrams and stresses all the time, you know, and I think you do learn a lot of lessons. You definitely learn, as you say, to be selfless in the grihasa ashram if you make it through. And hopefully all of you will make it through because, you know, grihasta ashram it creates a wonderful community, foundations for a very stable community. And you know, in the past, there wasn't a lot of training. Even in general in the world, you don't learn how to be good husbands or good wives. And in Krishna consciousness as well, you know, devotees were thrown together very quickly. There were a lot of mishaps, you know, along the way. So we really hope and pray that with proper association, guidance, and knowledge, you can all enter into a wonderful ashram, which is the most fulfilling and increases your service multifold, you know, to Krishna.
You know, sometimes when kids come out of school and they finish their education and they do get married, they consider what they learned at school. And sometimes they say, I really wish I'd learned how to change a plug. I really, really wish I'd learned how to change a tire. I really wish I'd learned how to put up shelves. These are sort of practical things that you will be called upon to do at some point in your life. So the education system needs to reflect the world that you're going into. Marriage is practically the most important thing that you will ever do. It's the most important thing to get right. It's terrible when it goes wrong. And the future of the world, practically speaking, depends on happy couples. There's a lot of evidence now to suggest that a lot of crime and mental illness and all kinds of social difficulties can be traced back to failure of parenting. Failure of parenting springs, we think, from unhappy relationships between husband and wife. So it's a really important thing. And if this movement, our movement, is to become as revolutionary as we are, Padma, we're talking about a revolution. We are, the revolution is surely revolutionary marriages. So, without further ado, I thought I would start in what not to do. Marriage is not, here's a few things that marriage is not. It's not a cure for unhappiness. It's not a cure for unhappiness. It doesn't mean that you won't be happy, but don't get married because you think it'll make you happy, because you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised at what happens after the honeymoon. It requires a lot of work. It's not marriage is not something that you do because you're in love. In love is a very bad measurement for who you're going to spend your lifetime with. And it's good to have love in the beginning of a relationship, but you can't base the future of your relationship on the fact that there is love now. Why? Because you may fall out of love at some point, and you may fall in love with someone else. So love is very fleeting. It's a very fleeting thing. Similarly, marriage is not a magic cure for lust. This is mainly spoken to the brahmacharis in our ashram. Don't get married if you think it'll sort your life out. It's not an instrument for you to sort your life out. You have to be a fully functioning human being before you get married, please. That really helps. And sort out any issues that you have with your parents, sort out your finances, sort out a lot of things in your life before you become eligible. The interesting thing is that we always look for an eligible partner, don't we? As if we were the king looking for someone to create our future dynasty. But we have to think, am I eligible for someone else to spend their life with? Because that's the decision that you're making. So heal old wounds before you become married. I need to get married because everybody else is doing it. I have a fear of missing out. If I don't marry now, then when? If I don't marry him, then who? Marrying under pressure is not such a helpful thing. I need to get married to meet someone who can sort my life out. No, it doesn't work like that. I need to get married so I can get a visa. You would be surprised. You would be surprised at the number of people who do it. I just lost my father. And my father always wanted me to get married. This is mainly for girls. I just lost my father. He always wanted me to get married. So I've got to get married. It's not the only reason that you can base your marriage on. You need to wait for some time to adjust. So be wary of your motivations. How to be wary of your motivations is to have friends and talk to friends and ask them the honest question. Look at me, you know me. Do you think I'm ready? Have I sorted my life out enough? Am I stable enough? Am I peaceful enough in my mind? Then when you've got your qualifications ready, then you can start thinking about who. Do you want to talk about?
Yeah, so about who, so about
what to look for.
What to look for,
Yeah.
considering a potential partner. I would say it needs some consideration, and don't just get carried away by your, like I got carried away by my husband's kirtan. I want to marry that one.
May I say, you got carried away and you made the right choice. Obviously.
But we're not actually very compatible, so I'm going to talk about that in a bit, but we made it 40 years. But I would say take some time to consider, not too long, not like a lifetime in preparation for getting married, but do take some time to consider and, think about the qualities, maybe write down 10 qualities that you would like to see that are most important to you in a partner. In a relationship of marriage, and then think about maybe 5 things that you really, really couldn't live with, right? That you really couldn't live with, because let me tell you.
Can I just say something?
Let me just finish this thing. It's all very
did you notice that?
rosy before you get married, but after you get married.
Take notice, boys.
Now I'm just going to say, after you get married, so many things become magnified or become even greater than what you thought. That were evident before you got married.
I was just going to say that there's some things that are absolutely essential for you. Not for everybody who gets married, but for you. So girls, if you're looking for a man, he absolutely must have these qualities, this characteristic. Boys, she must be exactly like this. Certain things are essential. And then certain things are just not essential, but they're important.
Yeah, you're never going to get everything.
Yeah.
That's what I tell everyone all the time. You're never going to get we're all looking for the perfect person, but you're never going to get the perfect person that has everything. I did. But anyway, right. We're all trying to find balance in our lives, right? Spiritual balance, material balance, physical, looking after our bodies, our minds, and all that. So we want to find somebody that also helps us to be balanced, and we can see is also a little balanced themselves. Not kind of veering towards, but somebody that's a little bit sane as well, not veering towards kind of eccentric or, kind of strange behavior.
Sanity helps.
Sanity definitely helps. Humility, if we observe somebody...
Can I say something about sanity?
Sure, yeah.
Because sanity has a way of disguising itself very well in religious circles. Or lack of sanity, I should say, disguises itself. A person can be a religious eccentric, and you think, well, at least he's religious. At least he's a real devotee. You get married and then you find he's a devotee, but he's crazy. The eccentricity has now become a type of, really difficult to deal with, so watch out for that one.
Well, yeah, also, we all carry a little bit of baggage with us when we enter into a relationship. And for some, it's, more traumatic than others of, childhood experiences or things that they've had to go through in their lives. So, yeah, I would say, everyone should try and sort those things out to some degree, not be depending on that person to help sort those issues out. If you need help, or if you think another person needs help, try to choose someone that is actually open to getting the help that they need to help, deal with things that may come to the surface later on in a relationship, which can cause a lot of challenge and conflict. A good listener, we're going to talk about communication. You need to be a good listener, but you also want to choose somebody, because sometimes communication between husband and wife, male and female, a male or two males, whatever it is, it can go, you have to be able to communicate, to understand each other and express your needs. It's not good enough that you speak the same language. You need someone that really is understanding and a good listener. This is a big one, freedom from addictions. I mean, I'm not just talking about, obviously, you're not going to choose someone that's, a druggie or something like that, but computer games, that's a big one. I met someone the other day that said her son is like 22 and totally addicted to computer games.
There's a lot of shifting going on.
We're all addicted, social media, phones and this and that, but if your relationship with the person becomes so much that they're always on the screen and never talking to you, and you can't, there's no time for your spiritual lives, yeah, well, that's the spiritual aspect is obviously the most important for us. It's also challenging, having the practice of sadhana and puja and so many things to balance with everything else, but it's certainly the thing that kept us together for 40 years, really putting Krishna in the center. So it does work sometimes when we know devotees who have married non-devotees who have been completely respectful of their practice and even taken steps towards taking up that practice themselves. But really, if you can find someone that shares those same spiritual values as you, it's going to make life so much easier because you can have Krishna in the center and you can move forward together, parallel lines towards Krishna. Financial stability. Finances can cause a lot of tension in a marriage. So, my husband was never a big earner. He was an ashram boy, but somehow or other Krishna's looked out. I wasn't looking for that at the time. But I think nowadays it's become more important. Yeah, it's become more of a thing now because we were ashram devotees. I mean, we actually lived in the ashram for the first 3 years of our marriage. We were homeless. No, it was Krishna's home, but I think now things are a lot different. Things have changed, and so the world is a different place, and it is important to at least have that kind of financial stability. Compatibility. Well, as I mentioned before, my husband and I, we're like 20% compatible. We did the astrology. It came back really well. Then I checked, and actually they had my birth date wrong. So it went down to 25%. But we were already attached to serving together. So yeah, astrology. I mean, some
I
people
think
are into it.
we already got married, I think.
I mean, I don't know. I know Krishna says, that he takes charge of your. It is helpful to know where you are compatible and where you are not compatible, and to find a certain level of compatibility for sure. Whether you take, because you can ask 10 astrologers and get 10 different astrological readings. So what importance you put to that, that's up to you. But I think you should find a certain level of compatibility, and certainly things that you enjoy to do together. Certainly, serving and, chanting together and those sorts of activities are there, but there should be other things as well. So I think if you take the time to observe your potential partner in different situations, even before you're together, just when you, because, just seeing how they respond in stressful situations or in different social situations, which aren't in the protection of the kind of Krishna, loving community, I think that's kind of important. Or the other thing is just witnessing how respectful they are to other devotees, how critical they are. Certainly if somebody is quite a critical person to others, then it could be that they're going to become critical towards you as well. Or just become quite cynical or critical. It's just something to consider.
I think there's two things that you have to... Thank you, very well spoken. I think there's all the things we didn't do before. There's two things to balance up. One is that Krishna does make arrangements. One is that, and the other is that not everything is Krishna's arrangement. In other words, if you meet someone at the temple, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily Krishna's arrangement. You understand? I'm just looking at the girls now. If you meet someone at the temple, I'll say it again, it doesn't necessarily mean that because it's the temple that this is Krishna's arrangement for you. And even if that person speaks to you and says, Hare Krishna, Mataji. One of the best chat-up lines, isn't it? So, what group do you belong to? You're the Panavasena. It's nice, isn't it? Yeah. So, we have to be at the same time expecting Krishna's mercy, at the same time on the lookout for our inability to see when it's Krishna's arrangement and when it's just an arrangement made by someone else. Is that all right? I'm going to give you what we've done with a lot of...
Can I just say something? Be wary of someone trying to make an arrangement for you, because they may also have, they may be your well-wisher, but they may also be, trying to help someone out or this or that. And I know Neelamani's really good at making arrangements. So if she tries to arrange something for you, that's okay. She's arranged many successful, couples.
They say it's darkest just before the dawn. So just before you find your lifetime partner, that's when you get really depressed or desperate. And when you think it's never going to happen, that's just when it happens. But you have to be patient sometimes. These are 12 tough questions to ask. Well, we may not go through all 12. In fact, we'll miss that one. Oh, yeah.
No, sorry, ask some of them.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, the first one is, let's be honest, do I have some concerns about this person? Okay. Is there anything about him or her that would rule them out of being my lifelong partner?
And you got to keep your senses on you, because sometimes whatever infatuation or what you think I'm in love or something definitely covers up your perception of the reality of the situation.
It's called Maya. Are there things about this person that I'm making excuses for? Am I making a subconscious attempt to conceal some incompatibility? In other words, I see it, but I don't want to see it. In other words, that's a difficult point. Are there things that I don't like, but I expect that they're going to change at some point? And remember the old saying, women expect a man to change, but he doesn't. Men expect a woman not to change, but she does. Okay. Are there habits this person has that I don't like? Now, sometimes people have made the wrong assumption that you can only really check a person out if you live with them. And there's a lot of pressure in the world now, even within the Indian community, of living together before you get married. I know because I've done weddings for the past 30 years, and the number of couples that come and I say to them, so when did you meet? Oh, and then they say, 7 years ago we met, and we moved in together 6 years ago. The statistics are out. The statistics in both America and Western Europe is that by living together, you don't make a stronger commitment. If you don't get a stronger commitment, you don't make a stronger partnership and a stronger marriage. It leads to not loving in the highest possible way. There must be love, but it's only possible to develop love if there's a commitment. And the commitment comes when you're committed. Committed means marriage. And it's not just an old-fashioned idea that your parents are trying to force on you, but it's statistically proven that when people are just living together, and they want to live together because there's an option of backing out, that many people do take that option, the back out option. And even if there's no children involved, still there's a heart involved, and the heart is a lot more tender than any child, and you'll never recover from that. So it's better to do it once. It's hard enough to do it once. And the thing to remember is that love grows after marriage. You don't have to wait until you're peaking and you're absolutely crying yourself to sleep every night because you can't see him. That's when love has really arrived. Now, that may come, something like that may come after years of a marriage. My question, okay. So there's 4 categories that I put down. Things that are essential about the person that you either you've been introduced or you've been, it's been arranged or you've met or something like that. Things that are important, things that are desirable, and things that are irrelevant. Make a list. Your list will be different from my list. Okay? And his list will be different from her list. Do you respect this person? Do you actually have a respect for them? Not just an attraction, but can you respect them? Because respect is, nothing poisons a marriage quicker than contempt for the other person, so you must respect them. Is your friendship with them open and honest? Can you speak your mind? Or are you holding back every time to impress them? Are they holding back to impress you? Or can you speak properly? Does the relationship generate psychological energy? Is there some spark? Must be a spark. You must be feeling more creative, stimulated, excited, challenged. Or are you just weary dealing with it? I think you know which you should feel. You're not exactly looking for your perfect match. It's not like finding a person who's exactly like you. You're looking for a person with whom you're compatible. So you may have differences, but those differences should be able to work together. And then what do your friends think? This is very important because a relationship is going to be upheld, nurtured, strengthened by the bond of friendship with other different people in your friendship circle. And then your family. your family can see things that maybe you can't. So at a certain point, if not right at the beginning, turn it over to mum and dad and see what they say. And the big question is, do you want to share your life with that person? So we've gone through the beginning.
Can I just add something? I think it's important. I know there are things available like, I think the Grihasa Vision team has like these kind of questionnaires that you go through together. Like just to talk about expectations, in terms of, you're raising children or financial or whatever it may be, sexual or whatever it is. I think it is helpful actually to have those discussions because those are real life situations that are going to come up for you in the future. And if you find somebody is like really, on a different track, it's really kind of important to know that firsthand.
Yeah, it's true. You may not be able to know everything about a person or how the person will be throughout their life. But there's telltale symptoms, you can pray about it, you can see what friends they've chosen, you'll see what work they do, what they are in their life. And of course, if you're interested in sharing your spiritual life with someone who's fairly compatible, either you're really strict, choose someone who's as strict, either you're a struggler, choose someone who struggles, and you'll understand each other better. Don't think, well, I struggle in spiritual life, but I'll choose someone who's strict, and that will really get me together, because that might turn a little toxic. Okay, we're now halfway through.
Oh, okay, halfway through. So do we want to talk about some of the things that help to sustain a relationship?
Yeah.
Because I know some of you are just not even in one yet. But there are some things that, we kind of put together that, we feel are really important, especially for devotees, because a lot of times we get this a lot, and we do tend to have couples coming to us with challenges and difficulties. So many, yeah. And a lot of times it's because, okay, let me ask you this question. What would you put, how would you put these in order? Marriage, children, service, sadhana, what else? So what would you think is the most important, like in order of importance? You can call that.
Marriage.
Some people will say children, but actually, if the marriage isn't solid, the children are really going to feel it. And it's really going to impact on everything in your life. So sometimes devotees have this idea, well, I'm going to do lots of service. You really need to take the time to put the effort into the relationship. Part of your service is actually making your marriage successful. And that's going to impact your family, your children, your community, your friends. It's going to have your spiritual life. Because if you're not peaceful in your marriage, even your sadhana will become challenging.
One thing without devotees. Try not to take marriage advice from someone who's never been married. You would be surprised how often that happens. And we have some wonderful sannyasis in our movement that have never been married who offer marriage guidance advice. I'm not saying you don't listen to them, I'm saying take it with a pinch of salt. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So making the effort, taking the time and effort to invest in your relationship, that's especially in the first few years, because you're building a foundation for the future. And whatever time and effort you put in at the beginning is going to be a lot less than what is going to be later on when you're going to, experience difficulties. But
when you get married, you have the red dupatta and the white dupatta, and you tie them together, and it makes a knot. The knot is said to be all the vows that you make, but it's also said to be Lord Vishnu as well. The idea is that there's a husband, there's a wife, there's two people, and the third element is the knot, and that is the marriage. So he serves the knot, she serves the knot. Marriage is a third entity practically. And the question you ask yourself is, not is this good for me, not even is this good for us right now, but is this good for our marriage? And if you do that, then what happens is that you make the right decisions. Is this good for our marriage? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine. I mean, the difficulties will be there, and you can expect.
I said, men, this is a very good tip. Please forgive me, I'm sorry.
We're going to talk about that later on. It's a hard thing to say.
There you go. Keep doing that and you'll have a great night.
Yeah. I think, difficulties will always come, especially in the first few years of marriage. When you first get married, and start living together, it's a kind of a, marriage is like a dance, So you have to find your steps, and definitely in the first couple of years of marriage, it can be challenging because you find out things that you never knew. you thought you knew your husband, but actually you find out things like, they snore really badly, or, they leave their whatever, nail cuttings in the sink, whatever it is, you find out things, and you have to negotiate. But those difficulties, you can work to actually make your relationship strong. It's how you deal with the difficulties. So if you're able to deal with the challenges that come and help your relationship to become even stronger rather than pulling it apart, that will be your success. Did you want to say something?
Up to, yeah, just, no, I'm okay.
I think it's about
Communication.
Yeah, it's about being vigilant. I think you mentioned about complacency, especially after some time in a relationship, you can become a little bit complacent, and it's about being vigilant and really respecting this ashram of marriage, and always working to renew and restore the your relationship, even though because things will change. Things do change all the time in a relationship, whether external or internally. There's always things that are going to be, and so the communication bit is just so important.
Could I say something about the stages of love?
Do that of love or what?
Love, yeah.
Yeah,
Let's talk about love.
Let's talk about love.
Is there love in marriage?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I like to think of 4 levels of love. The first is, they all begin with C. The first is craving, and craving is a very selfish type of love. It's, I have to be with you, I love you. It's when you turn on the radio, it's the songs that you get whether it's Indian radio, Pyari, or whether or whether it's I love you baby or whatever it is, it's a craving. I must have you, got to have you in my life, never going to give you up. Never going to let you down. It's like the song that Rick would sing. But it's very self-centered. Very self-centered. And it doesn't sustain the marriage all the way through. The next level of love is also C. And it's a subtle difference. It's called companionship. Pani means bread, and com means with bread. And it means sitting down and eating with someone, doing the daily stuff of life with that person. There may be craving, or there may not, but you're happy in that person's company. You're just happy in that person's company. Not that you're happy if they serve me, because there's a little bit of extra accent, I suppose, on our circles scriptural-based relationships with the idea that, the woman serves the man, etc. Men, be very careful of that, because it can lead to what we call Vedic husbanditis. Very bad disease.
That's why I said clarify expectations.
Clarify expectations. Yeah. And then the next level, I suppose we would say, is C is care. And that's really where you as a man or you as a woman, you develop your sense of care. And it means that love is demonstrated by seeing to that person's needs. Now, all of these different things can go on at the same time. It's not that they're only progressive and the craving will die off. Hopefully you keep that spark alive, at some stage. But the last one is sort of commitment. The wedding is a commitment, and it's such an enjoyable day that we have, and you remember, and then you go to your honeymoon and everything like that. But the commitment has to be a thread that runs all the way through, and it's meant to increase. And a commitment means whatever happens between us, I will always be here for you. I will be here for you. You're not, the craving end of it is, whatever happens between us, I want you to promise that you'll always be here for me. That's the sort of me. But if it's you, and you're putting the other person and their happiness as the center of your life, and they're doing it at the same time, there'll be a competition between you. That competition will lead to an even greater sense of satisfaction. So that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, and I would just say one thing that I always stress to young couples is don't use your husband or wife or partner, whatever it is, as just a dumping ground, because you want them to be a good friend. I mean, I think, that sharing bread or whatever, you want to have a good friend. But at the same time, I think if you're always just, letting everything out, so to speak, all your troubles and complaints or whatever it is, whatever you're going through to your partner, then it's going to be quite, and the thing is that women understand women a lot more, and men understand men. Well, hopefully they understand each other. I know women definitely understand women. So I think a lot of you, I know there's the ladies, Padma, what's it called? Empower, and what's the men's called? Rise. So I think you're on a good trajectory there, that you have your male, because it's so important, for the men to have their good friends that they can open up to, not just really spaces where you can be honest and open with each other, whether it be mentors or just friends, and the women have that as well. Like my daughter-in-law's here at the back, I think somewhere, but her husband's out with the boys because she knows that's important to him and he needs that, So although he should be here.
She said she's going to tell him about it.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that just is a really, really important factor in any relationship. And learning to understand each other is so important. Like, I know in Krishna consciousness we say women and men are equal, right? But we know that's not really true, right? Right, ladies? I mean, women, they reach adolescence at 18, and men probably about 30, right? And when men are sick, it's like a major event, right? When women are sick, they just carry on, right? And we all know that women can multitask so well, and men can just kind of do one thing at a time, right? And
well, maybe not even that.
And women, are so naturally good at caring for children. Men just think they're short people that are walking around the house. And women are really good at shopping. I would tell my husband shopping, He doesn't have a clue. After 40 years, still doesn't have a clue. I'm like, why did you go that? So, yeah, we are different. So we have to learn to try to understand each other. Here's something I want you to say, Jai women, and men, if this applies to you. These are women's needs, because women and men definitely have different needs. And let's see, if you agree with this, ladies, you can say Jai. I can find it. Yeah, where is it? Here we are. Okay, women. Right, you can say Jai. Women, this is what women need. Affection. Jai. Conversation. Jai. Openness. Jai. Security. Jai. Commitment. Jai. Men. Companionship. Physical attraction. Okay. Domestic support. Admiration. Sex. Being honest.
You twisted out of them. You twisted out of them. You've been married a year, you've been married 2 years, maybe 3 years. The novelty's worn off. The nail clippings are definitely in the sink. He, she definitely snores. It's not quite the same. And you think a little bit of the love has worn off. And you suddenly have this thought cross your mind. Did I make a mistake? Did I marry the wrong person? Mm-hmm. Now that thought is thought by just about everybody. Just about everybody has that thought. And you're not alone. And at that point, don't do anything rash. Just hold on. Because thoughts are like, do you ever watch that? No, you wouldn't. It's back in the 70s. I don't know. But there was a game. There was a family game on TV. It was called the Generation Game. And
she's nodding.
There was a conveyor belt, and it was there was a toaster and a washing machine. And the game was that you had to remember as many things. If you could remember them all, you kept them all. It was always a cuddly toy. So the mind is like a constant flow of thoughts. You don't have to identify with every thought. It's not you, it's just a thought. Material nature kicks up the thoughts. You don't have to identify with them. And one of those thoughts is, you made a mistake. He's not the one. She's not the one. Oh my God. I stepped into that one. Why would that be? Because things go up and they go down and they go wobbly and they go all different directions. The person becomes the one after you marry them by doing all the things that are recommended that you do. Mutual service, helping each other, conversation, listening. Another important element is continuing to do things together even when your roles have been worked out. There's sort of certain things that he does, certain things that you do. But you have to have things that you do together, otherwise what happens is that there's a great wedge comes in between both of you. And the man is just doing the man things and the woman is just doing the woman things. She's with her friends. What is there left? So one thing that some groups, some churches tell the Mormons are good on this, is that they have husbands and wives have dates every 2 weeks, and it just means going somewhere, calling in a babysitter, because you've got babies now. We've moved on, and finding yourself. You see, when children, is this too early for this? Maybe it's a little too early, but when children come, suddenly a man looks at his wife and she's no longer as interested as she was. suddenly her body is not for him anymore.
As interesting as she was.
And is interested. She's all her love goes into the children, and the man becomes a little bit perturbed. Her body is, for making a child, for feeding a child, it's something completely different. And he thinks, that's it. Our relationship is over. Yes, the one side is gone, but you have to develop a new way of being together as husband and wife. It's constantly reinventing your relationship, and that's an important object. It's easy to lose track of that, and people who lose track of that completely, they are the ones who come to me and my wife and say, we're considering a separation, or we just don't get on. He doesn't understand me. She doesn't understand me. And I'll just squeeze it up a bit because we're coming to the end.
Sure.
In our modern world, if you go to Bombay, there's a ladies' carriage on the underground train, the local trains. You know that? If a man gets on that carriage, the police come and yank him off, because there's a separation in the culture. In our world, there's no separation, so that you will have, men will have ladies at the office, women at the office that they find attractive, that they talk to, that they work with. Your CEO might be male or female, doesn't really matter, but what it means is that we're all mixed up together, and there's greater possibility than a man who's feeling depressed because he doesn't have anything left in common with his wife will talk to a woman at work, and he's spending longer at work than he spends with his wife. So this sets up a psychological connection, and many men act on that connection, whether it's an office party or an office away day or a conference, something like that. This is where these alliances take place. Statistically, most divorces, when there's been another person in the relationship, have come about because the other person was at the office or someone that. Because if it's going to happen, it's going to happen with someone that you see quite regularly. And because it's new, she's fresh, he's new, he's fresh, this person really does listen to me. Especially when I explain how I'm not getting on with my wife anymore. And she's listening and nodding, and I think she really likes me. And then it's very easy for that person, especially when there's a power differential between, he's a department head or he's a CEO and she's something else. So these situations are there all the time. And you won't need to know that in the first 3 years, but by the 4th year, you're going into an area where you have to protect your marriage. You have to work on sustaining it and protecting it and actually defending it. Because I don't know whether you've noticed, but the idea of a faithful, monogamous, one-time partner marriage is looked upon by many, many people, probably the majority of people, as being old-fashioned. The latest statistics are that there are more children born from people living together than people married. Yeah. It just means that, there's greater risk. That's what I want to say. We time
That
up?
sounds very down. I just wanted to say a couple more.
Can you bring everybody up again?
Oh yeah, I'll try. That would sound all very but yeah, I think just in regards to that, because people will experience difficulties. It's not shameful or like a failure to go to get some help, as a couple or individually, whether it's to another grihasa couple that you look up to, that inspires you, or actually to get some professional help. I mean, there are many devotee trained counselors, but even you may choose someone not within a devotee community. But it's not like you shouldn't feel like you're a failure. we all need help. And so I just wanted to mention about that. Also, just to lift it up a bit, the thing that you say in the marriage all the time
Well, you gave me all the down bits to do.
No.
I'm a jolly person. I want to talk about it.
No, talk about it. Go on. No,
Well,
I just wanted to say about that
yeah.
bit where in the marriage ceremony, I always pick this out because I always remind my husband of it. When the woman speaks, right? You want to say that bit? When the woman speaks?
Well, it's just...
But it works both ways.
Yeah. It's just...
That Krishna is there within your relationship. So it is said in the marriage, when the woman speaks, you should see that it's like Krishna talking to you or the guru talking to you. Mm-hmm. But it works both ways, Yeah.
The other thing which we didn't really mention is that conflict is inevitable.
Yeah.
Arguments are inevitable. I think the lockdown has shown us that, a lot of marriages didn't survive the lockdowns, plural, that we had because people were naturally forced into situations where conflict was inevitable. It's inevitable anyway because that's just life. It's just conflict just means one person proposes something and the other one disagrees. So two people who have made a contract to live together and share everything, particularly to work together through difficulties, take on responsibilities together. It's a very serious commitment. There is fun and there's laughter, joy, but there's also a lot of responsibility and heartache because you have to sacrifice a part of yourself every time you have an argument in order to establish the peace. So conflict can be negotiated, and I've written in the book different things that you should and shouldn't do during a conflict situation, but by keeping your keeping the conversation going, by taking a what we devotees would call a humble attitude, by being respectful to each other, and by not raising your voice. Don't shout unless your house is on fire. That's the only time a man should shout. Okay, remember that. But in these different ways, negotiate that conflict, and don't go thinking that, we've shouted at each other, it's all over. You'll learn that shouting is just your way of expressing yourself, and that, okay, you've had an argument, and now here's another opportunity to establish peace again. Try to finish up an argument and be peaceful before you go to sleep that night. Don't hold on to those things because they don't go away. They're just planted in the heart and they stay with you, and eventually they fructify into sort of a toxic, poisonous plant, a weed that can choke the plant that you're trying to grow. All right, should we rest then?
And don't be ashamed to say I'm sorry, or to. It's really hard to do when you're in conflict. To say to someone else, I'm sorry, because everyone wants to be right. But try to be honest about your, whatever inadequacies or faults or mistakes, and but from both sides, and be prepared to say I'm sorry, and don't let things fester for too long. The cold silence, that's the worst thing, sometimes you need to take some time to reflect and consider the situation, but don't leave it too long, I firmly believe in just apologizing and letting the other person, putting the ball in the other person's court. That's what I do.
Thank you.
I'm just being open and honest, so that's all.
Yeah. All right, shall we have some questions maybe?
Yeah, I have lots of questions.
Oh,
Thank you, everyone. So I'm just going to grab this mic. And if
we
it's
can
a
do pass. Yeah, we can do pass.
Yeah. Do you want to show this? Am I taking that one? No, okay, I'm taking this one. Thank you. Okay, so we had lots of questions. I really appreciate all these questions. Some of them are really good questions. So we're going to try and get through as many as we can. And our way of trying to do that is I'm going to group them. So there's a few questions that are kind of like similar. So if you like asked a question, you don't quite hear it phrased in the exact way, I've probably joined it up with another question, just because some of them are quite similar. So we'll spend like the first half of this Q&A just talking about like entering the grihasta ashram and like finding the right person, questions around astrology and things like that. And then the second half we'll spend more on like married life and like actually being in the ashram. So if you have questions like, on the entering the grihasta ashram, like send them in now so I can like grab them. Okay, so I'll just start with like really open one. How do I find someone? What's the sort of like correct etiquette for sort of approaching somebody? And if you're comfortable, how did you guys meet each other?
Shall I talk?
Yeah.
No, I'll just talk about how we met. Is that what you? Yeah. Well, as I mentioned before.
How they should be.
Yeah. Well, we all have elders in the community. I mean, as I mentioned, I observed my husband from a distance, as I said, in different situations, preaching, leading kirtan, that kind of thing. And so, then I went to my spiritual authorities, right, who knew that I had a desire to get married. That was my Sankirtan leader and also the Sankirtan leader in the UK, which was Shiva Maharaj. And then they approached him and said, would you like to marry Guru Charana Padma? He said no. However,
I was being open and honest.
so that was a shock. But the seed was planted. So after some time, he came to his senses. And there we go. And then we associated for 6 months. I was in the ladies' Sankirtan party. So we would have fruit salad together in the morning before we went on Sankirtan. And sometimes later on we went on Sankirtan a little bit together, didn't we? Because that was our life at the time. And the rest is history. So in terms of how to go about. I mean, maybe somebody like one of the elders of this Pandavasena alumni community can kind of, I don't know what the process is, but I mean, we have elders within the community that can help us to, approach somebody, or do the pre-type of things beforehand, find out a little bit more. Or, do you want to say something about that?
I think the thing is that there should be a certain amount of caution, but a certain amount of enthusiasm as well, and taking advice from your friendship circle, your senior circle, maybe parents if you still talk to them. I don't take it for granted. And anybody that gives you good advice. It may be a person outside your immediate knowledge. And the astrology, that's one component. It's not everything, but it's a component. There are some people who, there's two different attitudes. One is that we don't need to get any charts done because I just know. That's an extreme. The other extreme is that she's rising Sagittarius and I'm Jupiter aspected with Venus, so it's definitely going to work. That's another extreme. So we have to take, it is a science. There's two aspects of astrology, of course. There's predictive, which is what is going to happen to you based on your karma. And there's what you have to work with, which is compatibility, which is an aspect of your ability to deal with this one, so the compatibility between one person and another. That's not so risky. But when all the boxes have been ticked, then you begin to gosh, I can't even remember. But there has to be a point in a safe situation, maybe with others, that you come together and you begin to inquire. Perhaps there's some introductory meeting arranged, and there is a very nice questionnaire that young couples go through now, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
And it's all very... See, there's time for fun, but at this stage, it's all very mechanical, actually. Right in the beginning, it's very mechanical. It's like, does this fit this? Is this compatible? This one compatible with that? So that's what you're looking for. It's more scientific than it is emotional.
I think it was mentioned before that I know my daughter-in-law, I don't know where she is, but one of the things that when she was, they were just on a bus trip together, but it was very, Krishna conscious bus trip. They didn't speak to each other, but they were kind of observing each other, the situations, and they didn't contact each other. But one of the things that they noticed about each other was the quality of their friends. And I think that's something to note. Like she said to me, I saw the qualities of the friends he had and how close they were and all that, and that really impressed her. Sorry, I don't know where she is, but I don't know. Hope you don't mind me mentioning.
Yeah, that's really, really helpful. I think one of the things you mentioned there, the questionnaire, and this question is around, you mentioned lots of qualities and lots of questions to ask before choosing someone, but is there really someone out there who meets all of those sort of criteria that you have, that a person might want?
No, I think the questions, I think there's one version of it has 150 questions that people ask, and it's you're looking for as many as possible, but not a complete and utter match. It would be very, very rare, I think, if you got that complete and utter match. Probably, we see sometimes, I know I do weddings sometimes, and the couple met when they were 14, and their boyfriend and girlfriend when they were 15, and now they're 25 and they're getting married, and it's just, you just look at them and you think, this is last life type of thing, Sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes you meet a person who is, a last life connection that wasn't very helpful, but you feel drawn to the person and you immediately cancel that person out. It's a strange kind of... You finish the relationship that you had with that person in the last life, in this life, it comes to an end. Interesting. Stories I could tell you about.
I think the most important things that are for you, for instance, I've seen couples that have been associating, but then it turns out that, he didn't really want children and she did. That's a really important thing, isn't it, to know before you get married? Or...
So that is done by the questionnaire?
Yeah, but she's saying, all right, so obviously you're not going to get yes to all the questions, but the things that are big for you, like if a woman's career is really important to her, but her potential husband just wants her to be a stay-at-home wife, then that's going to be a big thing. That's going to, send alarm bells or whatever. The things that are important to you have to be right for you in the questionnaire.
It must be remembered today that this is a great source of conflict, great pressure for a woman, because whereas a man is expected to go by tradition and by modern times, he's expected to go and be the breadwinner. A woman is also expected to not only be the breadwinner, be the CEO, be the homemaker, and be the mother at the same time. So for women all over the country, it's a great, what do we do? What do we do? At what point do you stop your career and become a mum? And if you do become a mum, at what point do you stop being a mum and hand over your children to a nursery, which the government is paying you for? At what point do we consider that perhaps children need their mother more the modern culture is telling us that they do. These are all big questions, but those questions are focused on women because it's their biology and their choices. So it's difficult it's more difficult now being a woman because you're not urged to be a traditional wife and homemaker and mum. In fact, quite the reverse. Is that what you want to do? You just want to stay home all day looking after your children? I couldn't do that. A lot of pressure. Next one.
No, that's
In all of it, it's about good communication, and as we mentioned before, because things will always be changing in your lives. Your career may be important to you, but you may get to a point that you really want to have children, and actually you don't want to go back to work. So it's about being able to speak to each other, understand each other, communicate well, and negotiate, the way forward. If you can do that, that's just such an important thing,
For sure. So at one point in the talk you mentioned, you need to kind of be like more of a fully formed person before you go into marriage, rather than sort of hoping that it'll fix you up. But that can take a lot of time, and people also can get, really picky, sort of trying to think that, trying to find the exact perfect person. So this person's asked, marriages are happening later and later nowadays. Is that a problem? Do you see late marriages as an issue?
Well, there's one view that, biologically it's a problem. You can't escape the biology. I mean, we do hear of, women who've had a full business career, and at 52 they decide they want to have a child, so they have surrogacy or they have some arrangement. But yeah, I talked to another lady about this, Urmila, and she says the Vedic idea is early marriage, early childhood, and then
she's into really early.
she's in early marriage. But the average age of a woman getting married now is 27. The average age for first child is 32. And that's cutting it fine. Cutting it a little fine. Yeah. And it was cutting it fine. Yeah. So, there's no standard recommendation, but biology itself says, anyway, that wasn't your question. The question was, it's just, does this person possess, in a man, you're looking for a certain amount of emotional maturity, a certain amount. There should be a progression. In other words, that he's becoming more mature, and you're cutting it when he's 25. By the time he's 35, he'll be fully emotionally mature. And it's just, sometimes people have undisclosed issues that they're still working on. You can't get it all sorted. But look at the parents. When you imagine yourself with someone, look at the parents. Are the parents balanced? Are they nice to each other? Does the boy come from a good home? Does the girl come from a good home? Does she come from a very materialistic home? The different gradations. My wife and I we were chosen. There was a television program called Wife Swap. Wife Swap. You ever heard of that? So they asked me to be on Wife Swap. And I said, well, they said, because you have a completely different type of, or you both have a completely different type of life. I said, who are you going to pair us up with? They said, we're going to pair you up with very materialistic people. I said, we didn't agree to go on the show, but it would have been a bit fun. I would have tried out a new wife for a week. Anyway.
I'm not very materialistic, right?
Yeah. The point is that some people are very materialistic, and you have to know that about a person. You know, you have to know as much as you can about them.
One thing is that as you get older, you definitely, I mean, this is a fact, you get much more set in your ways, and less, you know, it becomes more difficult to adapt to somebody else's, you know, way of doing things, way of living, and all that kind of thing. You've definitely become more set in your ways. In terms of the baggage and sorting your life out, I think if people are honest about where they're at, where they're, you know, where they've come from, and how they're getting help with it. Yes, these things do take time, but at least if they're open and honest about the hardest thing for people with challenges from trauma is actually admitting that they have a problem, right? People will not recognize or admit that they have a problem, but you can see it, you know.
Great. So we're sort of running short on time. So there's loads of questions on this topic, and we'll definitely take them through to like the next session and into the topips that we choose for our next session.
We'll do a quick fire round.
We could do a quick fire round. But I'll just really quickly touch on sort of the period of courting. So you know, you found somebody and you're you know, maybe going to get married. How should people kind of navigate that? How long should they spend in the courting phase? And what to do when it doesn't work out? So how to deal with heartbreak there.
Oh, I think in the book I've given some advice on that. I can't even remember. You know, you are trying to see whether this person... How long does it take you to make an assessment of a person? You're not trying to have a relationship. Courting is not having a relationship, it's not developing a relationship as such. It's an opportunity for you to see whether there's a relationship potential. The difficult thing is that sometimes people, they court, as we used to call it, they're engaged. And I asked them, how long have you been engaged? And they said, oh, we've been engaged for 7 years. And what that means is that they've already bought a house together, you know, and they've been living together for 5 of those years. So the idea is engagement is really, according to our Vedic culture, engagement is called Vagdanam. Vagdanam means engagement comes at the point where the father of the bride gives his promise that I will give you this girl at a particular point during the wedding ceremony. So engagement for us means that you know, we try to it's as short as you need in order to ascertain the qualifications of a person. Not that it has to become a flaming love affair in order for you to prove yourself that love can exist between you. It's a sort of catch it before it catches fire.
Are you going to do a quick fire?
All right, quick fire.
Oh, okay. I do have something to say about it, but
Yeah.
okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Quick fire, let's get them out.
Okay. I think we'll maybe move on from the sort of entering grihastra, and we'll sort of move on to married life, because a lot of people in the room are actually already married as well. So I think one of the big questions that's coming out here is, how do you kind of balance doing different services and also giving time to your marriage, especially for people who are like kind of newly married, they maybe don't have kids yet, so they theoretically can spend more time doing service.
Well, definitely see your marriage as a service. Definitely see your marriage as a service to Krishna. One difficulty that we have in our Krishna consciousness movement is that our leading authorities are sometimes describing marriage always as an obstacle to Krishna consciousness. And what that sets up is a guilt and a shame of being married in the first place. Our tradition has many, many, many more married saints than there are sadhu saints. And done properly, marriage can be a great vehicle for spiritual development. So we have to take that into consideration, that marriage is not something that you do outside your service to Krishna. It's the main service to Krishna. If you don't get that right, you won't be serving Krishna, and neither will your partner, and neither will your children. So for the safety of the world, for the future of the world, get it right and do it right. And I think Krishna will be pleased. Don't you think so? I think Krishna will be pleased. Yeah.
I'm just going to say, because you mentioned before having children, and I think definitely it's advisable, or I would say recommended, that before you have children you take time together to get to know each other really well, to have some fun together, to travel together, visit different communities, temples, have a holiday. Yeah, because once you have children, as many of you know, your life changes dramatically. Yeah.
Dramatically.
Yeah.
There was this old idea, the reason why we have a honeymoon is because it was a period immediately after the wedding where the bride and groom, now husband and wife, would have one complete moon, which was 28 days, in which they would be fed honey. And that honey would, shall we say, stimulate their affections for each other. So there was 1 month where they had nothing to do except develop their relationship, certain aspects of the relationship. So sometimes we have to be very careful that there's not a clash of priorities. That we need to. It's like I had to put petrol in the tank, but I was so keen to get to the temple, I didn't put petrol in the tank, and I never made it to the temple. You see? There was one time Prabhupada came to England, Srila Prabhupada came to England, and a devotee had been so Krishna conscious that he put neither water nor oil in the engine, and the engine exploded. And Prabhupada's response was that every time you stop for petrol, check the oil and add water. In other words, make it a discipline that sustaining your transport to do Sankirtan is just as important as doing the Sankirtan itself. So the ashram that you live in, you work in, serve in, is just as important as the service that you're trying to do.
Awesome. I'm going to start zipping through some questions.
Zip.
Just so we can cover as many as possible. So there's a question here about parenthood. So parents play a really big part in our community. They're really emphasised, it's such an important part of our ashram. But how do we balance sort of prioritising the wife or husband and not feeling sort of guilt around that?
Guilt around?
I think it's around prioritizing your wife or husband, maybe even over other kids, maybe your kid, maybe over your kids. I think that's how I'm interpreting it.
Do you understand the question?
I think so. Yeah, I think as I mentioned before, once you have children, your life does change. I think for many of you, you have a lot of support networks in terms of families, parents and grandparents and things like that can actually help you support, like a more extended family to help with support for the children. Because even when our children were growing up, we tried, and we didn't have a lot of support actually, because obviously our families aren't devotees, nor do they live near us. But we tried to support each other as devotees, friends. So
That was a fashionable to have children in that time.
yeah, not so much, but we did still try to do this. I don't know if it was once every 2 weeks, I can't remember, or once every month, but we did try to take some time to spend just with each other. And then, once we did this, and I was kind of on the phone, with whoever it was looking after the children, or with the children, the mom was like, can we just have me and you together without the children? And I think it was important, because yeah, of course the children mean everything to us in our lives, and we give a lot to our children, but it would mean a lot to the children for us to keep our relationship solid, and for them to they understood that we were spending time with each other, and they could feel the love that was between us. So that was really important. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, I think it did. So the next question's around like finances. What do you do when you've got sort of a man on one hand coming from a sort of simple working class background, and the female maybe coming from more of a well-off family? So there's sort of difference in living standards. How do you sort of address that as a challenge in marriage?
I would ask the question, why, my dear girl, why are you interested in him? No, really, why are you interested in him? There's going to be problems in your relationship at some point. Yes, he chants very nicely, he sings very nicely, he's a good devotee, but he cannot look after you in the way that you expect. This is the main question that a father has to a boy, and the boy comes and says, I'd like to marry your daughter. The father says, traditionally in English families, can you care for her in the manner to which she has become accustomed? Because what she interprets as love from her husband may be completely different. Because what he's seen is that love means, a certain modest level of income shared within the family. What she interprets is something completely different. So there's a disparity there which may reveal itself. And this is one of the businesses of, when I say that don't allow Krishna consciousness to cover over this disparity that you may, this lack of compatibility that you may discover. I mean, it may be a factor, or it may not, but you should be aware of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Back in my day, in the 1960s, it was possible for a family to own a house or be paying a mortgage on a house on one income. Now you can hardly do it on two incomes. So in some families there's absolutely no question of a woman absolutely having to go back to work and just to keep the roof over your head. So we have pressing financial problems that cause social problems which perpetuate other social problems, and it's hard.
But if you can have childcare that's either grandparents or a childminder, but not like in a nursery with like 30 other kids when the child's just a baby.
Can I just say, also, each woman's body takes a different toll after each birth, so you need to give yourself time physically and mentally to adjust to being a mother, a parent, a couple. So if you start predefining how quickly you need to do things, you might end up putting more pressure on yourselves, your family unit as well.
That's good.
So I think it's something to consider.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm getting a lot of pressure to speed up. So I'm going to just do two more questions, and they're both going to be, one on one topic and one on the other. So there's been a lot of questions around the level of affection to have in a relationship, and how to avoid over-attachment. And so I just want to try and capture as much as I can. And how to deal with natural physical attraction as well.
Within the relationship.
It's a lot, sorry. I know.
Yeah.
Within the relationship,
It's that area. Gosh, is that the time? I'm just staring off into space. That is, I wrote about it. It's in the book. I think that, again, it's just, this word balance for me keeps coming up. Because too little of that, and there's difficulties. Too much of that, and there's certainly difficulties. And we have a very strong spiritual tradition given to us by Krishna in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which talks a lot about sort of having a cool approach to physical affection in marriage. And we have bodies which sometimes tell us something else. It is a struggle, and it may be a struggle for many years. Mother Nature tends to sort it out later on in life. You know, usually Mother Nature tells us when to begin, that kind of thing. That's why brahmachari life kind of comes to a natural close at 25. And the raging hormones come to a natural close at 45, 50. That's why another aspect of life is at that time. But each couple is individual. Each couple is different. There may be each partner is different, of course. So there may be. One thing I have written about is that this need, which I do see a lot of questions on, and the reason I'm stalling is because the main question is, my husband's needs are different from my needs. My wife's needs are different from my needs in that area. What to do? And again, I think you have to see the marriage as the most important thing. What is going to serve the marriage? If the wife is desperately unfulfilled in physical affection, or the husband is desperately frustrated, it's going to be difficult for the relationship to continue. However, if there's overindulgence, it's going to be difficult for the relationship to continue. So most couples that I have talked to, there seems to be this sense that we're trying. Sometimes we're not quite perfect in our abilities, but we are trying. And I suppose the school report could be, could try harder. We could all try harder. But I think one main thing is to be very honest about what your needs are and see if your needs can be minimized. At least we have a whole philosophy based on minimizing our physical needs, our sexual needs by spiritual strength. And Prabhupada says it is like a child's seesaw. He says when one end is down, the other end is up. When one other end is up, the other end is down. It's like that. So good, strong spiritual life leads to a natural minimization of focus in that area. And weak spiritual life, certainly depression, anxiety, financial worry, leads to an overindulgence, which then perpetuates a disequilibrium in the relationship itself. Have I said enough? Probably. Read the book. I get more specific.
So I'll just finish with one quick question.
Thanks.
One last question. And it's something we've sort of touched on a bit, but what's the best way to deal with disagreements?
Oh, you do that sort of thing. This is a whole science, it's actually a whole industry, helping people to negotiate disagreements, conflict resolution. There's two areas, I suppose. One is conflict prevention, and the other is conflict resolution. And Anytime there's a new element in your relationship, whatever it is, we go through a pattern called forming the relationship, storming, norming, and performing. Performing means you carry on. But if you're growing as a couple, there will be conflict because things are changing. Things are changing in your life, things are changing in my life, and we're trying to harmonize ourselves and bring about stability in the middle of great change. We find, for instance, I find as a spiritual mentor that the top areas for people's spiritual life to be unstable is when they've got pressing needs in their life, like ill health, bereavement, change of job, changes in the relationship, children, all these areas of where people come to me and they say, I just can't chant. Just can't chant. My father died, I just can't chant. I've just been in hospital for 2 weeks. I can't chant. Or I've just moved house. I hope you're not expecting me to chant. I just can't. Can't chant. So these areas are where insurance companies also know this, that it's difficult for people to restore equilibrium. And your partner will tell you, well, I'm going to be a little bit tearful. I'm not going to be able to do this and I'm not going to be able to do that. Okay, I'll see what I can do. Then they'll feel understood and cared for, and you may prevent the conflict. And conflict comes when something changes and you respond to it in an unfavorable way, and you elevate it to an absolute, like Kitchery. I always use this example. It's a joke. I had to use it.
It's not a joke.
Yeah.
I really don't like it.
I don't like Kitchery. So she makes Kitchery, and I might go, we're having Kitchery again? So that is a complaint. And then I elevate it to a, contemptuous remark. Okay? Or I elevate it to a criticism, rather. And I say, we always have Kitchery. As soon as you use the word always, you've elevated your complaint up to a level of an absolute. We always have Kitchery. We never have anything else on a Monday. Always and never. You just elevated it up. Then you do comparison. I bet Naveen Krishna's wife doesn't cook him Kitchery all the time. So what am I doing there? Comparison.
That's the worst.
Comparison. I'm comparing my wife to somebody else's wife unfavorably. Okay. So we've just elevated an impression that you've been hard done by having Kitchery to something much, much more serious. And that goes in and that hurts her, you see. So she may be humble and she may deal with it or pretend that she deals with it. But that will be taken into the next conflict. And as all men know, a woman will remind you of what you said 2 years ago, 2 years, 5 months, 4 weeks ago when you complained about the Kitchery. So you have problems. So try to prevent conflict, but it will come anyway. Try to heal it and deal with it, and don't let it fester.
Can I say something? Yeah, be aware of the things that create conflict or can trigger conflict in your relationship. It could be like somebody always, not helping out at home, or the in-laws, so many things. But you can negotiate non-negotiables, like there should never be physical violence. You can negotiate. Never use threatening or abusive language with each other. don't have a conflict late at night. I mean, quite often, husband will come home or wife will come home late at night, and they're both tired, but one wants to have a whole, discussion about something, which is, actually I didn't mention this before, but this is one of the most important things that I've learned in 40 years of marriage. It's about timing. Choose your time. Choose your time when you want to discuss something, when you want something from your husband or choose your time. It's so important to be very conscious of when is the appropriate time. Like, I know if my husband's honoring Prasadam, he does not want to discuss anything. So if I go to him with schedules and asking him, he gets really agitated. So I know that that's not the time for me to discuss things with him, right? But it's a really important lesson for all of you, men and ladies, both, to really appreciate and understand, because if you choose the wrong time, it can boil up into something nasty, right? So that's just something I want to leave you with about timing. It's a really important, just you have to bide your time and choose the right time to, whatever it is, to talk about something that's bothering you. Could be at a time when you're just having a nice time together. If you choose the wrong time, it's going to go the other way. So.
And if there's something difficult that you need to say, try humor.
Yeah.
Try turning it into something humorous. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to be happy. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Hari Bol. Well, thank you so much. So if you have any unanswered questions, they obviously will take them into our programs, but also do take a look at the book. It's, as I said, it's available at the back of the room here. It's £5 today. If if they run out of books, which is possibly might happen because there's a lot of people here, you can actually pre-order them and just pay today, and you can collect them in 2 days from the manor. So there's plenty of books that are being printed. I'm just going to make some very, very quick announcements. So thank you everyone for coming today. As I said, this is the first of our grihasa programs. We're hoping to have them on a monthly basis. But we're really, really keen to take your ideas for topics and for speakers. We want to make them these programs as relevant as possible to really answer the questions you guys actually have. So please do approach any of the team members. The team members are Renali and Ambarish, Leela and Rishabh, and myself. And so please do approach any of us if you have any ideas. We're going to send a feedback form tomorrow, so we'd really appreciate it if you took some time just to think of any topics you want to cover. We'll definitely take the questions that haven't been answered and just the general topics that came out today and try to sort of feed them into our program. And then one last announcement is there is a Pandava Center program that is coming up. I'm just looking for the date. Hang on. Give me a second. It's for everyone. It's open to alumni, PS mentorship, everyone. And it's on Monday the 10th of April. It's a really, really special program with His Grace Gauranga Prabhu. It's going to be all about Lord Hanuman, so that should be a really exciting program, I think, and a really interesting topic, not something that we talk about that much. And it's called The Ideal Servant, so look out for messages about that and please do sign up. And we're going to finish up today with some kirtan. That's the perfect way to end a perfect program. And we'd be really, really, really grateful if Kripamoya Prabhu, if you could do the kirtan, but no pressure. But we would be really grateful, but no pressure at all. We have lots of kirtanias as well.
Thank our wonderful MC.
Oh, no, wait. No, I need to say thank you. Can we get 3 loud Hari Bols for Kripamoya Prabhu and Mother Guru for their wonderful insights today?